An imp is a European mythological being described in folklore and superstition. Originating from Germanic folklore, the imp was a small, lesser goblin. The Old English noun impa meant a young shoot or scion of a plant or tree, and later came to mean the scion of a noble house, or a child in general. It should also be noted that unlike Christian folklore, demons in Germanic legends were not always necessarily evil. Instead, they were often described as troublesome and mischievous, more than threatening or dangerous. By most accounts, imps are small and bony creatures. Their faces are like masks of thin stone, which are frequently twisted into a smirk or grimace. Oversized ears and horns sprout from their head, just as leathery bat-like wings sprout from their shoulders. Their skin may be scaly or stone-like, and they walk with an unpleasant hunch. Imps were also portrayed as lonely little creatures in search of human attention, using pranks to attract human friendship. Even if the imp was successful in getting the friendship it sought, it still often played pranks on its friend because that was the nature of the imp, hence the term impish. Their pranks are said to be nothing more than the impulse of a moment, and if an imp is found engaged in a more nefarious plan, someone else is probably the mastermind. Due to the accounts of imps being desperately lonely, they are said to always travel in pairs, or in mobs. Imps' behavior is chronicled as being wild and uncontrollable, much the same as fairies, and in some cultures they are even considered to be the same beings, both sharing the same sense of free spirit. It was much later in history that people began to associate fairies as being good and imps as being malicious and evil. Starting in the 16th century, it was often used in expressions like imps of serpents, imp of hell, imp of the devil, and so on, and by the 17th century it came to mean a small demon, or a familiar of a witch. As familiars, imps can take the shape of animals, including insects and birds, which are then sent out on tasks at the command of a witch or magician. Witch hunters during the Inquisition accused witches of rewarding their imps for evil deeds by suckling them with their own blood. When accused witches were in prison, they were watched closely for any appearances of their imps. Prisons were often full of insects and rodents, so it was rare that a cell would not have such visitors. Guards would pounce on any pests found, and if they were killed, it meant they were harmless animals, or bugs. But if a fly or spider escaped, it was taken as a sure sign of the witch's imp. Witches were accused of using imps to carry out evil deeds upon innocent people, such as bewitchment, ill fortune, accidents, and even death. In return, the witches suckled their imps with their own blood, using their finger or protuberances on their body. Witch hunters searched the bodies of those accused for witches' marks, usually warts believed to serve as teats to feed their imps. Within Elden Ring, imps are small humanoid enemies that resemble living stone statues of winged gargoyles, some bearing the heads of demons, others beasts. They are often found in tombs and catacombs, possibly acting as guardians to the deceased. They typically lie in wait, either posing as harmless statues, waiting around corners, or clinging to walls and ceilings. With the exception of the pots they throw, all the weapons that the imps wield inflict bleed damage, weapons like the Forked Hatchet or Forked Greatsword. The Forked Hatchet explains that the gently undulating fork blade is known as an imp's tongue and causes blood loss. Here we have the term imp's tongue being described as forked. The phrase forked tongue in English literature can be used as a reference to a reptilian tongue or as a metaphor for untruthfulness. To speak with a forked tongue means to deliberately say one thing and mean another, or act in a deceitful manner. There are multiple variations of the imp's head, one of which is referred to as long-tongued. This particular imp head resembles a long-tongued demon with horns and fangs. Other imp helms resemble beasts, like felines and lupines. One is even referred to as fanged, being described as holding trace amounts of bestial strength. Imps have fangs, horns, and wings, all aspects of the crucible. Having a reptilian tongue could refer to dragons, which are the physical embodiments of the crucible. I recently watched Vati's preview of the DLC, and he mentioned a few interesting things, one of which being about Andreas, the Black Knight commander. The Black Knights were the primary force in Mesmer's army. Their first leader was Andreas, a man endowed with great strength and command over the power of the Crucible. Andreas rebelled after learning of his liege's serpentine nature. Mesmer's serpentine nature could relate to the literal red snake attached to his body. His eyes could relate to him partaking in the dragon communion, or it could refer to him taking the form of a dragon, as within the item description for Andreas's ashes, it states that he remained a devout follower of Mesmer after his flight from the Erdtree, albeit all speculation of course. The spirits of two fanged head imps can be summoned for aid in battle using the fanged imp ashes. These spirits are well suited to causing a disturbance, moving nimbly like pests and hurling magic pots. The two imps seem fond of each other's company. The ashes item description of the imps in game match real world lore, as in some accounts of imps, they claim that they are always traveling in pairs, or in mobs. These ashes can be selected as a keepsake during the creation of your character. A keepsake is defined as a small item kept in memory of the person who gave it or originally owned it. To begin our journey, we are given the option to take one of 9 keepsakes, but whose keepsakes were they originally? We are also given a spectral steed whistle and spirit calling bell as we begin our journey. Both the whistle and the bell were once owned by the same individual, as Ronnie states that the bell is from Torrent's former master. Another keepsake is the bewitching branch, an item used by Miquella to compel the affection of others, through blood magic. Another keepsake is Shabriri's Woe, depicting an image of the most reviled man in all history. What a title. Shabriri is in service of the Three Fingers and is self-proclaimed Chaos Incarnate. Shabriri is the name of a demon of blindness in Jewish mythology, which is hinted at with the eyes missing from the talisman, and Shabriri using his hands to cover his eyes when speaking to the Tarnished. Shabriri had his eyes gouged out as a form of punishment for the crime of slander, meaning making a false spoken statement, and with time, the blight of the Flame of Frenzy came to dwell within his empty eye sockets. Albeit speculation, Shabriri's crime of slander could be preaching the knowledge of the Three Fingers to the Great Caravan, or, in the very least, related to the Caravan's punishment as the Golden Order sealed them beneath the earth. If the Tarnished wishes to receive the embrace of the Three Fingers, they will inherit the Flame of Frenzy, and the only way to reverse this decision is to utilize Miquella's Needle, an item capable of subduing the flame, allowing one to cheat fate. Miquella's connection in this case is his creation of a needle that protects its user from becoming the Lord of Frenzied Flame. The final keepsake I want to mention is the Stone Sword Key. Throughout the Lands Between we find imp statues blocking us from various items that can only be accessed via a stone sword key. The key is shaped like a sword, and to break the imp's seal you must put the blade into the head of the imp, thus symbolically sacrificing him for the power or knowledge sealed behind the statue. The statues seal the area or item it protects with a misty or shadowy veil. There are also imbued sword keys, which are essentially the same except they're imbued with a rich blue magic. These are specifically designed for the 4 belfries. The 4 belfries is a hill with 4 large bell towers overlooking Lernia. Each belfry hosts a waygate that transports travelers to various locations. The purpose of the 4 belfries aren't directly stated, but we can infer information based off of where the waygates take you. The first belfry transports you to the crumbling Farm Azula, the location of the Rune of Death. The second transports you to the Chapel of Anticipation, a cemetery. The third transports you to the Eternal City Nokron. The hidden treasure of this city is a blade said to have been born of a corpse. All locations relating to death, each waygate being sealed off with an imp statue. A belfry is a part of a bell tower or steeple in which bells are housed. Churches utilize bells for a variety of reasons, including funerals. Specifically, a death knell is the ringing of a church bell to announce the death of a person. Like the bells that hang from a walking mausoleum or the spirit calling bell, I believe the bells are the belfries to represent a mourning for the dead. The chime of a bell ringing is found in the sainted hero's grave, where the Tarnished must lead shaded imps into a circle of light. Each time an imp is transformed from dark to light, a faint chime is heard in the background. A similar chime can be heard when using the skill associated with Roses' axe, that summons 3 lost spirits. Roses, Usher of Death, is a mysterious figure depicted across the Lands Between, attributed to guiding the dead, akin to a psychopomp. Roses guides lost souls to the catacombs, where they can be absorbed by the roots of the Erdtree. Minor Erdtrees utilize these catacombs as a source of nourishment to grow stronger. He is depicted as a hunched-over, long-necked, and eyeless figure with a wrinkled face, dressed in a robe and has roots growing from his head that form the shape of a crown. He has 5 fingers, but only 3 toes, all of which appear to be clawed. It is unknown if Roses was a real person or just a part of the Golden Order's religious iconography. Roses appears to be a combination of man and beast, as his hand depicts 5 fingers, but his feet depict 3 claws. This same feature is shared with the Imps. The design of the Cinquedea celebrates a beast's 5 fingers, symbolic of the intelligence once granted upon their kind. The claws on Roses' feet look similar to the claws on the Erdtree burial watchdogs. The watchdogs serve as protectors of the catacombs where the Erdtree burials took place. They are living statues resembling beasts, some with 3 heads. Their head contains feline features, similar to the cat imp helm. Felines are found throughout the Lands Between, as beasts denote ties to the Crucible, like Beast Regent Siraj, Lion Guardians, Misbegotten Warriors, and the Dancing Lions. It's also interesting how often the imps are found in sets of two, like the fanged imp ashes, the imp seal statues, or the fighting imp statue found in front of the Albinauric Rise. Duality is a theme of Elden Ring, thus twin symbolism is present throughout the lands between, like Darien and Devon, Margot and Moog, Melania and Mikola, Nokron and Nokstella, the twin moons, etc. Twins appear in the mythologies of many cultures around the world. In some cultures, they are seen as ominous, and in others, they are seen as auspicious. For example, the divine twins are youthful horsemen, either gods or demigods, who serve as rescuers and healers in Proto-Indo-European mythology. The fighting imp statue is found in front of the Albinauric Rise, within the consecrated snowfield, an area associated with Mikola. To gain entry into the tower, you must create conflict between the imps, which can be achieved via summoning the feigned imp ashes, using crystal darts, or utilizing a bewitching branch, 2 out of the 3 being keepsakes. The bewitching branch displays Mikola's ability to compel the affections of others, to control their actions. Remember, the imps use the Forked Hatchet, stating the forked blade is known as the imp's tongue and causes blood loss. This could all be in reference to kind Mikola. Within the Erdtree, 2 imp-like statues are placed on either side of a cloaked figure, the Erdtree being the sapling that Mikola watered with his very own blood. In closing, imps may seem like nasty little creatures bent on frustrating the tarnished while they explore the depths of the catacombs, yet in another light, they are the protectors of the deceased buried within the catacombs' roots. Erdtree burials are given to warriors like Kristoff and Oleg, as warriors would have more runes collected from their slain foes in battle. These runes are then used to power the Elden Beast, aka Greater Will, as their bodies are absorbed into the roots of the Erdtree, or minor Erdtrees. The Imp's masters are said to be the Erdtree burial watchdogs, who share many of their beast-like physical features pertaining to the Crucible. Misbegotten also share these features, and due to this reason are enslaved by the Golden Order. The Imps are used in a similar manner, used as tools for the Order to protect the roots within the catacombs. As always, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to watch, and I hope you all have a wonderful week.